Hey, my name is Brent here on Cloudy with the Chance of Meeples. Welcome to Ideas, a time where we sit down with illustrators, designers, and publishers in the board gaming hobby and find out how they got their ideas from just being ideas to the games that fill our shelves. And I firmly believe that community is built on conversation, much like games are built on ideas. And today, joining us, we have a designer that goes by the name of Matt Riddle. How's it going, Matt?
Good, Brent. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Happy to be here.
Oh man, I'm pumped. I just love talking about game design and finding out how people got their ideas from just ideas. Yeah. I'm kind of a nerd, I guess, when it comes to the ins and outs of things.
Yeah.
I was the guy who would sit and read like the leaflets on my CD, like liner notes, and like read all the personnel and stuff. And I feel that kind of board gaming or design is kind of similar in that sense. Like there's a lot of like things that go on.
Yeah.
That,
that's a fact. You know,
from before they hit the shelves, right? Yep. And so we're going to dive into that. And but before we can do that, you didn't grow up designing games like you do now, I wouldn't imagine. So like, nope. I always call it the origin story, the backstory. What got you into this hobby that we share?
Yeah, so I'm a Midwest kid. You know, I grew up in the Michigan, Detroit area, and you know, things I play. It doesn't not everybody, but it means to me, a lot of my friends played a ton of cards. Okay, you know, euchre, poker, pinochle,
pinochle.
You know, like just betting games. You know, screw your neighbor, anything, right? Anything we could play, right? Like any sort of our family functions. You know, we played rummy, Michigan rummy, you know, things like that, and that was just always a big part of our lives. And we certainly played board games. We had Monopoly and all the other standard games that you have, you know, but I loved cards and kind of just was, you know, always attracted to, you know, card games in particular. As far as designing games and the hobby specifically, I guess to start with that, you know, what's funny is that I played Catan probably 2 or 3 years after I graduated college, so 2002 or 3. Thought, oh, that was fun, and didn't think anything of it. And then about 7 years later, I got reintroduced to Catan again by a whole different group of people, you know, by my brother-in-law, one of their friends, and we fell in love. We've been playing, you know, I would say my girls are the oldest of our family friends. Like, you know, they're kind of we're the first ones to have kids. So we've been playing poker a lot, like as the guys, right? You know, and not a lot of the wives were interested in poker at the time. So, you know, we were kind of looking for something that we could begin to do more as couples and things like that. And Catan hit the spot perfectly. So we played Catan exclusively for probably 2 years before we even found other games. Like we didn't know about Board Game Geek. I think so. Ben, the guy I designed with, I've known him since we were. There's actually 3 of them, not Adam as well, but you know, just for the guy I've been designing with the longest, I've known him since we were 12 years old. Oh, wow. You know, we grew up in school and church together, etc. And you know, I think he found BGG, so he bought Power Grid. Then we bought maybe Dominion and Puerto Rico, and you know, just kind of went through like at the time the top 5 or 10 games, and just fell in love. Honestly, like the idea that you could have fun and be social, but still make those. You know, I'm an engineer, I'm a math guy. You know, I love those decisions. I love kind of that process of determining, you know, kind of figuring out a plan and following it through and seeing if it works. And that's really what kind of makes me excited to play games. So that was, you know, it was a really quick dip into the hobby. You know, once we got that first next game past Catan, from there it was on, right? Like, you know, I don't have the biggest collection, you know, 100 games maybe. I keep it pretty tight. You know, play a ton, you know, except for a small group of people who have their own games. Right. So, you know, I'm not like one of those collector types, but I just love playing new games and love going back to games I love and just playing as much as I can.
You know, you said something that really struck made me think. You said when you got into the hobby, you played Catan for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think that's just like just amazing that like I guess we live in the cult of the new, right?
We do now.
We do now. And do you sometimes miss that? Do you, like, you know what I mean? Because like,
well, I think, you know, I do. Sorry, and I think about it as a designer as well. You know, so you know, like I don't Rivervalley Glassworks, wherever it is behind me. It's probably been our first game that, you know, sort of flirted with that, you know, getting into that sort of core here's I think what's happens. There's guys like us who get into the hobby and we have shelves full of games and we play the new and we want to play the new thing and we're excited by the new thing. The reality of it is 60%, 70% of gamers play the same 12 games, give or take. Wingspan, Catan, you can name
Ticket to Ride.
Dominion, right? Ticket to Ride. And they change a little bit over time, right? A new one will come in, one will go away, things like that happen. But I think most people never get past that, small stack of games. So there is an innocence to that I think is what you're getting at. And I do agree with that. But I also always wonder, like Catan's such a perfect game, in the context of someone that grew up playing, we'll say, American style board games, with dice and with luck and with chance. Catan is so great at bridging the gap between being able to make good decisions and do things that feel like you had control, but also still hope you roll an 8, hope you roll, that's all. And frankly, that it is so good at level setting the fact that I can play with my nephew and my niece and they can win just as easily as I can win. Right. There's games up here that they'll never beat me at. I've played it, 12 times and they're never going to catch up. And that's not fun. And Catan does such a great job of bridging that gap. So I think that's what I probably miss is just, being content with, small set of things now, as opposed to always wanting to try the new Simone Luciani that takes 5 hours to learn and teach and set up and play. But I mean, hey, they're both good. Just to your point, sometimes it'd be easier to go backwards a little bit.
And I agree with that, right? Because so often, even my wife's like, man, I wish we could play this game, or, I miss playing this game. And not to say we can't, like, whatever, we can choose to play whatever we want, whenever we want, right? But then there's just so much. And sometimes those ones that you fell in love with just don't get the love.
Right.
You just don't play them as often for
suddenly
whatever
you haven't played in a couple of years. Exactly. My Adam, the other guy we designed with, he's got a pretty big collection. He buys a lot of new stuff. And it's always exciting to break out and try the new thing. Right. Like, man, we haven't played whatever, right? Pick a game, some fun game. We haven't played, Newton in a year and a half, right? Or so, and you miss those games that you love, So, for sure.
You said something else. You said as a designer, you're cognizant of that. So how does that shape the way you do design work? I'm jumping all over the place, and this isn't on our notes at all. But you said that in a really
that's all right.
You brought up a good point.
I mean, obviously, right. No matter whatever you design for, whether it be for fun, for money, for pleasure, because you just have to because it's in your head, you still want to make games people like, and there's certainly an attraction to, trying to make the next big thing, which you can't do on purpose. If you could, you would, right? It's all, there's a luck aspect to that, right? No one really knows what the next big thing is.
Right.
But what I do think that there is a way to approach designing, and I think it's easier when you've done as many games as, Ben and Adam and I have, right? It's first couple times, I think you're designing things that you love and we still are, but you're designing with this idea that's been in your head for a while. At some point, you begin to transition to saying, okay, really, what is the final product going to look like? What is it? What are we really doing? Are we making a game that's sellable? And I hate to think that you're going to, stunt the creative process that way, but there's some extent you kind of have to. You have to think through, like, what is the outcome of this? And I think that's what I meant by driving kind of how you design and what you design, because you have to have an eye on who's this, who are we going to pitch this to? What's the audience for this game, right? The world probably doesn't need another derivative of, whatever cool games out there. It needs something fresh and new, but also sometimes people want something that's a little bit familiar, and that's a balance, right? Like if you can do something that's familiar with a little twist, that's a great thing. I mean, he's one of my favorite designers is Philip Walker Harding. I think he's excellent. I always joke though that all of his games are just variants of Ra, and they're not. They're not, by the way. That's being very, and that's not me being dismissive to Philip. He's incredible. Right. But like, I love that he took, Ra, which is this excellent Kinesia game from 20 years ago, and he made Sushi Go to some extent, right? Yep. And you can feel the DNA of Ra in Sushi Go. And then he's built so many games on a similar system of that sort of set collection or mixed scoring and all that. And he's got games that just do that in different ways. And he's so clever. And I love his stuff. And, a lot of that's because there's enough familiarity and enough something new that you can kind of make that package into something that people want. And that's really hard to do.
I just got actually Wrath of Fire Mountain from Phil Walker Hardening and Eric Lang.
Yes, I had not played that. I saw it though.
Yeah, I got it right here actually. It's a neat little like well, I've heard it being kind of referred to as like a baby Blood Rage or baby like Monk or whatever. Those games are too heavy for me, for my personal taste. But my son has like gobbled that up. I came home from work today and he had it all set up. He picked everything and he was like just ready to go. And he's a fantastic designer.
Yeah.
But let's talk about your design work.
Yeah.
Which started a number of years ago. I want to quickly jump in the DeLorean, go back to kind of your first design, how you got into that.
Yeah.
And then we're going to move ahead to River Valley. And then I want to speak on the Four Doors a little bit. But what did that look like when you started designing? You said you've been designing with Ben. You've known him for many a year.
Yep.
Were you guys like creative and building and creating things like as middle schoolers? And
no.
What did it look like?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So, it's funny because the actual origin story of how we designed. So our first game ever was Fleet.
Okay.
Fleet was the first game we ever designed, first game ever got published, and really why we still do this, frankly. Like Fleet has been successful now for, 10, 12 years. And it's continued to sort of, allow us to do this in a way that, it helped build our name, I guess you could say.
Right.
So it's funny because we had been playing games with a group of work friends, and we played a lot of Race for the Galaxy and a lot of different card games. And I love those games. I love Race for the Galaxy. But I remember we would sit there and it was all engineers, right? Ben's an engineer, I'm an engineer. Okay. We're playing with other engineers. And engineers have a tendency to pick and kind of break things down a little bit and sort of kind of talk through the process. And I remember complaining one time, to Ben, I think, and my other buddy, man, I love going for the military strategy in Race for the Galaxy, but if you don't draw Emperor Palpatine, you're screwed, right? Which is this card in Race for the Galaxy that gives you points for your military, whatever.
Okay. And
Race very much has this sort of searching the deck mechanic.
Okay.
And that little conversation, sort of led to a couple weeks later, Ben walks into work and first thing in the morning and says, all right, so we're going to design a game and we'll go out to lunch today and I'll tell you all about it. So we went out to Taco Bell, which we did a lot back then. And he showed me his game and it was Fleet. It was the beginning of Fleet. It was multi-use cards. It was the license auction. It was, the sort of the structure of the game. We spent the next year and a half honing that game and designing it and really getting it to what we wanted it to do. And then we, spent a couple weeks pitching it and got a couple bites and then off we went. So, I wouldn't be here, frankly, without Ben, because I would never even occur to me to try to design a game. I'm not creative. I'm not a person who is, always, trying to create new things. It's not really, I actually don't really have that spark. I kind of need something in front of me to work on.
Yeah.
So that was sort of where Ben came in. And then now Adam, our third design partner, he's also very good at that spark and that initial creation. So, which is good for me because I have to have that. I don't take something from zero to something very often, every now and then, but it's not really how I work. I need something physical to think through and process through. And, I need a set of ideas I can kind of hack at and sort of iterate.
Build upon.
Exactly. Yep.
And I'm kind of like, speaking of kind of like my workplace and stuff like that, I'm kind of the ideas guy. I just start throwing out ideas like all the time and say, someone take this and run with it, because I don't have like the brain power or the bandwidth to move forward at times, but I have ideas. So I can see both sides of Ben's strengths and your strengths.
Yep.
And clearly
that is one of the things. Absolutely, and Brent. And that's one of the things you mentioned. I think I'm going to cheese a little bit and pull a question out that you had written into the chat or into the pre-show. So designing with partners for me, I wouldn't design by myself. I don't. I rarely even work on games by myself because it's not. It's not fun. The fun part is staring across the table at somebody and arguing or talking or figuring something out. And Adam, Ben, and I can all do that, right?
Right.
Adam's been somebody we met about 6 years ago now and joined our design group, and he's one of my best friends now. He doesn't have the history now that Ben do from as far as like 20 years or 30 years now. but still, he's immediately become one of my best friends, and we had that same ability to sort of, argue through something and talk about something. And, when you're good enough friends, you don't have to worry about hurt feelings. I mean, you still have to be nice to each other, don't get me wrong,
Right.
but
Totally.
like, we're not worried about stepping on each other's feelings, right? Like, you can say, hey, I don't like that. And you can be honest and explain it. And you're able to have that conversation and have that, sort of back and forth with, with your friends and kind of, be able to get to the next step. And to your point earlier, you have to have different strengths, right? It's a lot of folks, it's not uncommon, for people that are really good with ideas and sparks to not have that same, throughput or follow through, because that's just, to your point, how the brains work, right? They're much more comfortable or much more, we'll say, better at that sort of initial phase. And then you need someone else to help drag it through the rest of the phase. And that's a challenge. And that's why, to your point, right, you have to kind of pick people. I always say design, if you're a new designer out there and you want to design games, find a friend, find a co-designer, at least to start, maybe just because I just think it helps so much, and find someone that has sort of an alternative set of skills from you, and that you can both sort of bring what you have to the table and really work together. I think it does. It also is, there's an accountability factor, of course, right?
Yep.
That other person's always, if you're like, all right, I'm going to work on this. Well, next time you meet, and we meet basically weekly, I better have that done.
Right.
They're going to expect it to be done, right? And that keeps that motivation. Sometimes when that runs dry, the other outside influences can keep you moving.
Right. So let's keep moving. Let's move down the river. That was a nice segue. Let's talk about River Valley. Okay. Yep. I just got that for my my birthday. I think it was awesome. My birthday, my 40th. Yep. My wife bought it for me. We went to a game cafe earlier this year and hadn't played it. Heard like oodles of things about it, and I was like, I want to play this. So we did. And I'm going to ask the question probably many people have asked, and maybe it is a numbers thing. But why are you limited to 17? And it can't go high. Well, you can go higher, but that triggers the end of the game.
I'll tell you why.
Great question. I want to know.
So it was a balance, right? Because the game was almost too short. You know, in the sense of like we had to be really careful. And 17 is the number for two reasons. There's a threshold that you reach where if you have too many pieces, it begins to eliminate some of your decisions. Half the game, or a lot of the game of Rivervalley, which I'm sure you played a few times now, is trying to get a couple of good rows and a couple of good columns, right? Right. So the fuller your board gets, the harder it is to distinguish and get the columns where you want them. So it becomes too many pieces, right? And it's a matter of making sure that you have the ability to feel like, okay, I have one last turn, and you have that stress of maximizing, where can I get I need one last light blue piece or one last white piece to make sure that my, 6th or 7th column is my high column. And versus having just a full board, right? You got to be able to stop it right in that middle. So I'll be honest, it was just math and testing. We ran it and ran it and ran it and ran it and found that was the spot that, provided the most, good stress, I call it, right? Like, the fun stress, the worrying about what the right decision is and getting it done and feeling good about it before it kind of crashed. The wave would crash, and you'd have too many pieces and things would get, so that was the 17.
Absolutely. And totally makes sense, right? Because if I'm playing the game and I have like open-ended, like, we're playing 8 rounds or 10 rounds or whatever, when the game's coming. And I totally agree. Your decision space, the agency isn't there. Right. As much.
Yeah, 100%. We absolutely experimented with rounds. We experimented with a lot of things going through that. We didn't like making you count to 17, to be honest, right? It wasn't we thought people would get frustrated by having to always keep track. Now, obviously, the little tracker makes a big difference on that. And if you play on BGA, it does it for you. So, it's funny. I haven't played the game in real life in a while, but I play on BGA constantly. So, we definitely had to balance the fact that are people going to get, because, are they going to get annoyed having to keep track? But no one really just complained about that, honestly. It's been fine. And that was the best pure game end from a gameplay perspective. We tried really hard to come up with other ideas. We tried so many things, and we kept coming back to that because it was the thing that made the most sense.
And River Valley didn't start as River Valley. Like, that's a re-implementation of
Subastral.
Subastral.
It is. It's a different we really just reuse the scoring. I would stop a little short of calling it a full reimplementation.
Okay.
Like we've done reimplementations, like we're doing one right now with Three Sisters, and really it was just we wanted to use the scoring again in a physical setting versus a card game. Subastral's a pure card game, right?
Right.
It's a fun card game. It's been done very well for us. But it's strictly cards. You just kind of play and you go, and it's great. We wanted to really bring that physical, tactical element, but we wanted to use that scoring again. So obviously the draft's quite a bit different. With Subastral's a very easy, straightforward draft. So is River Valley, but it's much more dynamic because the river's moving and the pieces are going. And so, I think the decision there was because we liked Subastral so much. We wanted to see what could we do again and bring that tactical element to it as well.
Is Subastral, is it in print? Like, can you buy both? It is still.
You can. Yep, okay. It's in Subastral's Renegade. It's not as easy to find anymore. It's been out for a few years now. It's kind of starting to run its course, I believe. But we did 2 games with them, Subastral and Stellar. Stellar's a 2-player card game. Okay. That one's probably been slightly more popular. It's very fun 2-player card game, kind of a thinky card game. Okay. That's sort of where I love to work on those, like Pete Mott's and is another one of our card games. They don't make any money. Card games are cheap, and there's not a lot of profit there, but I don't care because we're not. We both have jobs. This isn't our job, so we can do things we want to do, not things we have to do. So I love working on card games. So Subastral and taking it to River Valley was a very natural step.
So when you guys started designing that, did before we get into the 4 doors, did like Allplay come to you, or did you guys say, okay, this is that game, and let's make another game similar to the scoring with that puzzle aspect, and you built that from the ground up? We did. We brought it to. We did not. Allplay did not come to us. We took it to the Unpub show, which is it's a convention for game design. It's an excellent convention. It's in Baltimore every year. Publishers come, lots of designers come, and it's an excellent show. So we brought it there and set it up. And to Allplay's credit, Joe Wiggins, who kind of is one of their leader operations guy and game finder, he played it and said, "This is it. I want this game. I'm going to make this huge." And he did. He was like, right off the bat, he saw the vision and he totally nailed it. So that's, it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes the process is much. We pitched a lot of companies a lot of games over the years, and we're fortunate, right? We're well enough known now that a company will take our meeting, which it can be hard for new designers, honestly. Like that's the hardest piece of advice I can give, is that I can't really answer the question on how to get game pitches, because the reality of it is companies get thousands and thousands of game pitches every year, and sometimes they get blown away by a game and they want to do it. Sometimes it's just totally luck. It's kind of the right person on the right day. So in that case, it was a little bit of that, the luck factor. He just sat down. We had a relationship with him from when he worked at Panda. We said, "Hey, we got this game we want to show you," and it was went very, 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 very quickly from there. What theme did it have? Did it have the current theme? And was it a river? Like, so it was called Rivervalley Glassworks, but it was actually thematically you were collecting depression glass. Okay. Like uranium glass. Are you familiar with that? Like your grandma might have had some, or your aunts and uncles. So it was literally like that really brightly colored dishes and cups. Like they're like pink and like neon sort of nuclear green. My daughter actually has a few pieces. She loves it. And it was just this kind of like kitschy little theme we had. And so the River Valley Glassworks was sort of a made up name about the glass was made all over the US, but it was made a lot in, like, I think the Ohio River Valley. Okay. And we just kind of that's where the name came from. So that the name stayed, the thematic piece changed. And the river actually was part of a development that John Brieger, an excellent developer, sort of helped come up with the way the river worked. We had a more static acquisition mechanic, and he kind of added the flowing river to it, which was really, really a big positive change to the game. So I love the game. I love puzzly little. I love like Sagrada is one of my wife's. Well, it's her second favorite game, but I love that whole puzzle. I like Azul. I love Aqua, which isn't the same, but it's still a puzzle nonetheless. Which funny that has 17 rounds. I think 17, or is it only 13? No, I think it is 17. But anyways, yeah, it might be. I haven't played Aqua in a little bit, but I do like that game. I think it's 17, which is funny because River Valley ends at 17 as well, and that's a number thing as well. Yep. With Dan, I chatted with Dan last year, and that's what he said. But let's move on to the 4 doors. So I had Jason Schneider of Happy Camper Games on ideas, and he was mentioning earlier this year about the four doors, and he was showing me I guess a pre-production copy or a production copy, and just selling me right there on the spot. And I was like, man, I'm interested in this game. And now, lo and behold, you are one of the ones that worked on it. And it's a cooperative game. What was it like working with Matt Leacock doing a cooperative game? And excuse my ignorance, I don't know if you have done any other cooperative games. You have a big catalog of games, but how was that?
Yeah, so we have not done a ton, honestly. It's not something that we do a lot of. We don't tend to work in the cooperative space. You know, in the case of the working with Matt, it was awesome. Matt is an incredible human being in every way. He's professional, he's friendly, he's smart. Like, he was excellent to work with. We approached him and said, hey, we have this idea for a card game. It's got some DNA, you know, frankly, from your cooperative designs. You'll see it like in sort of, if you play, when you get a chance to play Four Doors, it very much feels like a Forbidden Island, you know, sort of pandemic-y kind of thing. More like the Forbidden series. And, you know, we had a little bit of that DNA in a whole different space, but it wasn't, you know, he made some changes that took a little closer to that in a positive way, you know, but we sort of said, we have this, here's the core idea. And he kind of made a joke. He goes, you'd be surprised how often people approach me with, hey, I have Pandemic the card game here. And he goes, I normally blow them off, but I like your idea. I want to look more into it. That's funny because it was like 6 years ago. It took a really long time to get to where it ended up. And not because anything was going wrong. It was just a couple different things fell through in the process. And, you know, Matt was very patient the whole time and kind of had this idea for it. And finally, you know, when he's had a relationship with Jason and kind of said, hey, here's what, you know, this game could be. And Jason kind of took it home and said, okay, I'm going to do this theme on it. We're going to package it this way. You know, and he's got that great line of cards. I love Trio, one of my favorite games from the last couple of years. You know, excellent card game. And, you know, he sort of kind of went to Jason, and Jason had a vision for it, and he did it. And it turned out awesome. I mean, I'm not personally the biggest cooperative player. I prefer winning. You know, I like that. That's kind of what I'm after, especially when I play with like Ben and Adam. I want to beat them. Right. You know, so cooperative is not my first choice. But from a game design perspective, you know, if you're familiar with any of our roll and writes like Fleet the Dice game and Three Sisters and Motor City and French Quarter, they all have solo modes, which frankly are almost equivalent to cooperative modes in a lot of ways, right? A lot of times a cooperative game is also a solo game. So we took that approach with Four Doors where, you know, it is completely soloable, but we'd have that experience in designing solo modes, you know, for kind of what people would like to see. And Three Sisters and Fleet Dice both are very popular in the solo communities. Like they're, you know, roll and writes tend to be popular because they're really easy to set up, you know, for solo folks. And those two games in particular have done very, very well with those audiences. So we had some experience from that. You know, that actually those came after, well, not Fleet, the other ones came after we'd sort of done the primary design on Four Doors. Well, our part of the design, we handed it off to Matt. But again, kind of had that same design schema and sort of the same process. So we learned a lot. I mean, obviously working with Matt, we learned a lot as well on kind of his thought processes and, you know, how he's so good at what he does, you know, and kind of gets the games to where they need to be. And what he was incredible at was just the way he can scale a game so simply, like just this little track, and suddenly the game is twice as hard. Like, man, like one small little change, and now it's like it feels, you know. So it was a blast to work with him. I'm really proud of where it ended up. Hope it does well, obviously, for Happy Camper. Great, it's great company. We were, you know, really a fan of Jason, so hopefully it does well.
I'm like I said, I was like tickled pink when he was explaining everything. Small box, simple setup. Forbidden Island was one of the ones that my wife and I got. I think we had like an anniversary gift, and we bought Forbidden Island. It was like our first cooperative game.
Yeah.
We fell in love with that game. And much like yourself, I'm not the biggest fan of cooperative games because I guess I kind of like winning. And but I'm ecstatic to try copy. So we only have a few minutes left. This has flown by. This is insane. But what are you working on now? What can you share now?
Yeah. So what's next for us is we have a couple things going. We are working on to the follow-up of River Valley. So it'll be the game number 2, I guess, of that line, we'll call it. We're also working on Three Sisters Harvest Edition, which is a new edition of Three Sisters. Three Sisters is probably to this point now River Valley has eclipsed it, but I think it's probably our second highest selling game. I think it's past Fleet, past Fleet Dice. So it's a very, very good game for us. It's been awesome. Sort of the first game we did kind of on our own. Like we have a company. I don't know why I'm air quoting. It is a company, Motor City Gameworks. But we're not a publisher in the sense that we're not Asmodee or Queen, but we publish our games, and we've done 4 of them now, and this will be sort of the next one of that line of games for us. And we're really proud of it because it's kind of revisiting Three Sisters, and it's adding a whole campaign mode where you kind of walk through different chapters and you experience new modules that kind of change the game. And when you're done, now you have all these expansion modules you can use to play Three Sisters with. You can use it for solo, use it for group play, etc. So that's what we're focusing on right now. Again, in addition to the other big project being the River Valley follow-up. And we have a couple small things working as well. We're always chipping away, trying to keep things moving. It just depends on if we have the ideas and we can have the time to work on it. We're pretty hard on ourselves. We abandon a lot of things. We kind of, if we don't think it's good enough, then we don't think anyone else will either. So that's kind of how we operate. So we're always working on something.
That's, yeah, that must be tough if you don't think it's good enough, other people won't, but you never know, right?
You do never know. I would say it's easier, again, when you've done it for as long as Ben and I have, and now Adam as well, because you have enough things to work on that you're never stuck on anything, right? You're like, well, this is going okay, but this other thing seems more fun. Let's do that. It's when you're first starting, you don't have that luxury, and I acknowledge that, right? You've got a couple of main ideas and you're just trying to push them through, but it can be hard because, to your point, you never know. Like, something that we thought would just maybe it's just pretty good. Someone else thinks it's great, and that's kind of eye of the beholder, right? So every game, I have games I love. I have games I don't like so much, but I also always know that every game has an audience. Every game has people that love it. That's the best part about being a designer, honestly, is I'm very lucky in that I don't. I'm not bothered by negative feedback. Like you're not. I love my games. They're not my kids. So you can tell me my game. Tell me my game sucks. I don't care. It doesn't hurt my feelings. It was just an idea we had and we made it. But it's awesome when people tell you that some of our smaller games that didn't do as well is their favorite game. Like it's an awesome feeling. That's kind of what keeps you coming back to game design.
Right on. This has been amazing. I just want to thank you, for taking the time, and you really shared some insight for up and coming designers. Yeah. And so thanks for sharing that and being vulnerable and just giving pointers. And so if someone wants to connect with you, they have a question about game design, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so the best way these days is probably on BGG, Board Game Geek. My username is Riddlen, so it's my last name Riddlen. Okay, it's kind of it's like my old gamer tag from the 2000s. So that's the best way. Send me a geek message, I will respond. If you ask a question in any of my games forums, I'll see it and I'll respond. I'm happy to. I love doing that part. That's the best way. Not really on Twitter anymore. Blue Sky, I don't check very often. So BGG is the best.
Right on. So if you have any questions, feel free, send them to Matt, and he's got a wealth of knowledge that he would love to share. And I just want to thank you for taking the time there, Matt. This has been fantastic, been really cool, and I've learned a lot just hearing from you and hearing how sometimes we shouldn't just take people's negativity to heart, as hard as that is. And
it can be hard. It is. It's a skill you gotta learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you, Brent. I appreciate your time. It was a lot of fun talking to you.
And you know what? Like I said at the beginning, this ideas, games are built on ideas, just like community is built on conversation. And so check out Matt and all of his games, River Valley Glasswork. I absolutely love that game. You should check it out. And I'm so excited to hear that you're doing a follow-up. I'm just ecstatic for that. So until next time, my name is Brent. Grab your umbrella. The forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.